Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, and this is the preview to Milan-Sanremo. Now, tomorrow's race going to be the first monument of the season, of course, the first of 5 monuments in the professional peloton, and tomorrow is going to be the biggest, longest distance of all of them at almost 300 kilometers long, almost 200 miles. By the time you add in the neutral sections and all the other time they're going to spend on their bike riding to the hotel, they're over 300 kilometers and they're over 200 miles long on tomorrow's Milan-Sanremo. Now, when we get into the racing strategy, what do we want to see here at Milan-Sanremo? Last year, of course, it was Tadej Pogacar against Wout van Aert, and this year's 2023 edition is going to be the same thing. Throw in a little bit of spice there from Mathieu van der Poel, who should be on form. Not winning form yet, but when we saw Mathieu van der Poel during Tirreno-Adriatico, his 2 leadouts for his sprinter, Jasper Philipsen, was a piece of artwork to watch and look at when you compare it, especially to his old lead-out work that he's done in the past. This time at Tirreno-Adriatico, every time when he looked over his shoulder to see where his sprinter Jasper Philipsen was, and then backed off the throttle and then pulled it back on to go full gas and leave Alpecin de Koenig with 2 stage wins, leaving Tirreno-Adriatico, you got to know Mathieu van der Poel should be in the kind of shape to do something marvelous tomorrow on San Remo. So that's 3 riders to watch. Tadej Pogacar being the most watched rider when we're talking about going up the Cipressa and the Poggio. But once you get over the top, if he can't break loose at the top of the Poggio, then of course Wout van Aert becomes the biggest threat with Mathieu van der Poel mixed in the flair there. Now, number 4 on my list has to be Julian Alaphilippe, because the Frenchman looks like he's on good form. We saw him, of course, at Tirreno-Adriatico, a little bit off the mark, but giving a run on the sprint finishes there with Primoz Roglic from Jumbo-Visma's stage victories there. Julian Alaphilippe was always in the picture. I assume with a little bit of rest, backing off the throttle a little bit, when he comes into tomorrow's Milan-Sanremo, he should be a rider to watch. And of course, he's going to be the most protected rider for Quick-Step when we get into the race tomorrow. Now, 5th rider, nobody's even talked about, but yet I still have him as my 5th favorite, has to be Caleb Ewan from Lotto Destiny. Now, he didn't start last year's race because he had an injury or crash. I can't remember exactly what it was from Tirreno-Adriatico. I think it was a crash. But this year, he's coming in without doing Tirreno-Adriatico, which means he should be just coming in perfect with his training. He has won races already in Australia, and I believe he has at least 2 victories on the European continent here when we're talking about that bike throw at the UAE Tour against Tim Miller that they tied on, which I think should be a tie for a win, because I definitely could not tell the difference on that Stage 1 UAE Tour. And then when we're talking about the race up north, when it was a bike throw that the officials end up giving to the second place competitor instead of Caleb Ewan. When you looked at all the photos there, you could see Caleb Ewan clearly won GP Jean-Pierre there and should be given a victory there. That would give him 2 more victories on his Palmares right now, starting in San Remo. And he's not even listed as a favorite, and I have him as my top 5 favorite here at San Remo. Now, last year's winner, Matej Mohoric. Why is he not in the top 5? Matej Mohoric needs a little bit of help, right? We all saw last year's Milan-Sanremo. His descending skills were just absolutely on the edge of the couch there watching, because you just had you on the edge of your seat the whole time while he was going down the Poggio. But he had some help there from behind the motorcycles, which means you got to have some luck going down the descent, not crashing, because he almost crashed 3, 4, 5 times going down the Poggio. And he had the motorcycle in front of him. That is a lot of luck, and too much luck for me here on the Beyond the Coverage to give him a nod for being in the top 5. An outside favorite to do something, of course, Matej Mohoric is always an outside favorite to win any bike race there is. But I think he needs just a little bit too much luck, and too many stars need to align for Matej Mohoric to be able to win again like he did last year. I don't care if you bring the dropper post or not, because I don't believe it was the dropper post. I think it was the back seat of that motorcycle cameraman back there that was given a great draft, which helped Matej Mohoric win. You still had to be epic. You still had to descend marvelous, Matej Mohoric. And you still get the nod for the win up here on Beyond the Coverage, but it's too many stars need to align for Matej Mohoric to win. Some other outside favorites. Biniam Gourmet could win, and he's not going to need the help of the motorcycles. He's going to need a little bit of help coming up the final climbs there to be able to stay near the wheels of Wout van Aert and Tadej Pogacar when they go over the Poggio. But that's all. After that, the Era train will not need help when it comes to coming into the final sprint to be able to win outright, fair and clean, all the way to the line there of Milan-San Remo and take the win. He's got to be considered an outside favorite. Now, Jasper Philipsen got to be a favorite if he can make it over the climb with 2 wins at Tirreno Adriatico. And if he makes it over the Poggio, I believe Wout van Aert has to change roles. I'm sorry, not Wout van Aert. I believe Mathieu van der Poel has to change roles and go back and help Jasper Philipsen do the sprint all the way into the line of the Milan-San Remo in order to have a real shot at winning the sprint finish here at Milan-San Remo for Jasper Philipsen's Alpecin de Koenig team. That leaves 2 big-time favorites in the top 10 from one team. Now, Jumbo-Visma, I've already mentioned Wout van Aert, and since we're looking at 2 riders from Alpecin de Koenig that could help each other tomorrow, I want to highlight Wout van Aert and Primoz Roglic from Jumbo-Visma. You're like, Chris, Primoz Roglic is not even going to be here at Milan-San Remo. I know that's the case, and that's why I want to highlight the fact that he's not here, and Attila Valters will be the climber taking Primoz Roglic's spot. If you remember right, on last year's edition of the Butterfly Effect of Milan-San Remo, I said Primoz Roglic cost Wout van Aert a shot at winning Milan-San Remo with his attack going up the Poggio instead of just holding back after the attack of Tadej Pogacar going so deep at the top of the Poggio. When they hesitated and went curb to curb, it was Primoz Roglic near the top that threw a big-time flyer before Søren Kragh Andersen's attack, that is. When Primoz Roglic throws in that flyer, it's going to put the acceleration into Wout van Aert's legs. If Primoz Roglic had just went to the front and set the pace steady, it could have kept it smooth. Whatever attacks happened after that, Wout van Aert could cover the attacks and go over the top of the Poggio in the right position without being all the way into the red and suffering like he was from the attack of Primoz Roglic, his teammate. So where you see Alpecin de Koenig having 2 riders that are a threat, where you see Lotto Soudal having Arnaud Delis, that I think is going to be one of the top 10 favorite marked riders here for San Remo next year, or for San Remo's tomorrow's race, along with Caleb Ewan being a top 5 favorite. When you see those guys, it's 3 different teams with different chemistries from last year's and this year's, because, of course, with Primoz Roglic missing, Attila Valters will be 100% dedicated to help Wout van Aert all the way over the Poggio and into the line. And then, of course, now you start looking at Lotto Destiny. You got to wonder with Caleb Ewan and Arnaud Delis if they will counteract each other and possibly even fight each other if they come into the sprint, because they're both pure time sprinters. So you could see some kind of unrest chemistry in there between the 2 sprinters on who's going to be the most dominant rider, versus if you see a Caleb Ewan lead out Arnaud Delis, could be that they would win easily. Or if you see Arnaud Delis leading out of Caleb Ewan at the finish, of course Caleb Ewan might win easily too. But up here on Beyond the Coverage, I can't split the difference between the 2 riders because they both seem marvelous, both capable of climbing. Remember, Caleb Ewan 2 times second places here at San Remo. So you got to ask yourself, will those 2 riders, 2 sprinters from Lotto Destiny, work together to help Lotto win Milan-San Remo, or is there going to be a little discord amongst the 2 riders there? That's going to be a big question mark going up the Poggio on tomorrow's San Remo edition. Now, other guys to keep an eye on, Peter Sagan is doing his last Milan-San Remo. And if you remember right, last year he had the bike issue just before the Cipressa started, and that halted any chance of getting in a top finishing position here at Milan-San Remo for Peter Sagan. But this is his last season racing in the World Tour, so you got to believe if we're going to start seeing him performing at these classics, it's got to start tomorrow at San Remo. So keep an eye out for the Slovakian to put on a show. He has nobody to dispute against who is the top dog on total energy. So when we start the Cipressa and the Poggio, you know Peter Sagan's going to have 100% help from his 6 teammates all wrapped around him, and they're not going to have to do a lick of work all the way into the start of the Cipressa on tomorrow's Sanremo. So Peter Sagan, if he has the form to start these classics and finish out his last season of European racing in the World Tour level, it needs to start tomorrow at Sanremo if he wants a chance of putting this one on his resume, because he's gone podium here many times, but he has yet to win Sanremo. Now, other guys to keep an eye out has to be the Trek-Segafredo riders, and they have 2 riders on their team. But unlike the other teams, you know these 2 riders are going to work well with each other, because Mads Pedersen and a past winner, Jasper Stuyvens, both on Trek-Segafredo, and both are a threat to win Milan-Sanremo. I have them in my top 10 list, certainly, because one's a past winner, so you know if he gets the right little window of opportunity, he can win. And Mads Pedersen can win even if it comes down to a sprint, or possibly dislodge some people with a little bit of hesitation in the back and be able to slide away after the Poggio finishes proper, as we're coming in to the famous promenade, dropping all the way into the finish line here at Sanremo. Now, other things to keep in mind about tomorrow's race. The one thing different about Sanremo when you compare it to the other monuments, you don't have to stress before you go to bed. You don't have to fully pack your stomach worth of tons amount of food. You say, Chris, you're doing 300K. Yes, you're doing 300K. Normally the other races are 250, 265 kilometers. The other monuments, one day biggest races in the world, that is. But the difference between Milan-Sanremo and the other monuments is the beginning first 155 kilometers, so 100 miles thereabouts, is all done pretty easy with no stress. So you could have a nice solid meal at dinner, but you don't have to pack it in. Go to bed, wake up, have a nice solid breakfast, but again, you don't have to pack it in, because when you get to the start of the race in the buses, you have time to add the calories at the start for sure, and you have time for the next 100 miles to keep eating throughout the next 100 miles, because it's never going to be stressful. Most likely, early in the stage, we're talking about the first 10 kilometers, a breakaway will go up the road of between 5 and 10 riders, and then it'll be tempo in the back the whole time until they go up over the coastal climb. And once they start the coast, for the last 85, 90 kilometers, it'll start to pick up a little bit, but it won't be until you start getting about 60, 70 kilometers from the finish line that the stress is going to become intense, and then it will be as much, if not more so, than any other bike race you witnessed, because a lot of the bike riders' legs are fresh because of that first 100 miles done easy, that first 160K. And then once you get on the coast, things start livening up, and all of a sudden the cameras, the helicopters, the fans start coming on the road, and the energy starts picking up, which brings the level of the peloton up big time, and the stress level starts becoming huge as they're fighting curb to curb. And the road size is always going to be changing from 4 lanes to 2 lanes down to 1.5 lanes. They're going to split buildings. They're going to go around through roundabouts and then split buildings. They're going to come out on the coastal road. And then once we start getting into the Cipressa proper, all of a sudden, then we start seeing full gas. Milan-Sanremo, beautiful race, and there's a reason why everybody loves it as the opener of the monument races here at the European Peloton. Tomorrow will not disappoint. Look for Tadej Pogačar to be as aggressive as he was last year, starting on the Cipressa with his team leading up it as fast as he can. And then when we get to the Poggio, look for Tadej Pogačar has to go full gas. Remember, Wout van Aert has not put on the display of force that he did last year in 2022 when he came from Paris-Nice, where they dominated stage 1, going 1, 2, and 3. He won the time trial, individual time trial there, and then of course dominated on stage 8 when he protected the lead of Primož Roglič all the way up on that last stage from the attack of Simon Yates. So Wout van Aert's form is clearly not as good as it was last year. But what we saw on stage 6 of Tirreno Adriatico, when he blew the whole field up and brought it to about 25 riders over the top with 35 kilometers to go, means that, of course, Wout van Aert is still on very good form, and he has to be respected and still be the number 1 favorite to win tomorrow's Milan-Sanremo. But Tadej Pogačar, like last year, is going to be aggressive on the Cipressa. And it could be that Wout van Aert might not be able to follow Tadej Pogačar this time because his form might just be a little bit more off. Or it could be, with Primož Roglič gone, we might see Attila Valters back there, Mathieu van der Poel, who is on good form, but maybe not the form that he was last year either. We might see Attila Valters doing some early chasing of Tadej Pogacar, and we might see Wout van Aert and Matthew van der Poel working together to bring back one Tadej Pogacar that's going solo up the Poggio. Either way, it's going to be an exciting race tomorrow, so make sure you guys tune in, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Butterfly Effect after tomorrow's Milan-San victory comes to end and close here for the Butterfly Effect to begin. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.